100 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly
else.
swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy much.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that the creature moved as being unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in
just
its own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was. So whatever it was that was standing out there. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything.
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better...
evil.
Sure.
Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9".
Do you see him
The
now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who says
God,
she
he's
has been
big.
Faded out.
abducted since childhood.
Reality. I was just
what I remember
being brought up this
my
tunnel of
wall
light,
came
right?
from being
Out
around my
of
bed.
this tunnel light,
I
just
ran between them
noticed
and ran
parts
out
of
of
my
the
life
room
that
into
wouldn't
my
even
mother's
occur to me to
room to
remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
in
never
my
told
body,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried it in the back
And so
of my
then I
mind.
came to the end of this tunnel and noticed there was a man that first starts me at first as
A
a wizard.
mist or a fog
And
kind
I
of
saw
moving.
him
The action, the motion caught my eye. It actually started taking shape, taking form. The idea of the Grim Reaper went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror actually was going through me. And I really felt more.
Hey everybody,
and
welcome to Real Supernatural Encounters. For my guest today, I have Harley. And Harley's going to tell a couple of his own experiences, but before he does, Harley, could you give a brief bio about yourself?
Yeah, Harley, obviously, I'm fresh out of high school, born and raised Illinois, with plenty of family up in Michigan, so I've gone there plenty of times. Other than that, it's just basic stuff like music, kind of thing, like the video game.
Okay. All right. Well, Harley, when you're ready, go ahead and start with your first experience and just tell them all from there.
So the first experience is when I was little. This is something that occurs across all the males on my father's side of the family, where from when we're born and we start to speak, we start saying names of people that we never knew. People like our great-grandfathers, our great-great-grandfathers, whatever it is. And it's because we're able to see them. My family doesn't know why we're able to see them. We just are. And we just kind of accepted that. But as the generations go on, with me being one of the latest, me and my nephew, we being the latest, I was able to see and talk with them up until like the age of 7 or 9. I want to say it was 9 because I remember talking with my grandfather who passed when I was 7. He used to hang out in my room and I'd speak to him at like the foot of my bed while in my sleep. And even when I was awake, I would just see him just kind of standing there. My nephew, he's roughly 5. He sees his grandfather, or I guess his great-grandfather, I think it is. Yes, it's his great-grandfather. And he talks with him. He's always in his room. He sees him up in one of the houses that we stay at up in Michigan, which is a house that his great-grandfather is very fond of. Since I want to say he was the one that bought it originally. So we don't know why it happens, other than just we're able to see and communicate with the previous males of our family. As far as we're aware of, it hasn't occurred in any of the females, nor have we seen any of the previous females. So we don't know if it's just coincidence or if it is just specifically to the guys on my dad's side. And then the only other occurrence that's similar to that is usually the females, after being married so long, will start to experience dreams similar to it. But outside of that, we think that's just like almost like an aura kind of thing, where it's just like they latch on and they get a little bit of that sneak peek for like a year, and then that's it.
Well, Harley, if you want to go ahead and start with your next one with the soul lapse and the shadow being.
Yes, the soul lapse. The soul lapse was a being that at my old babysitter's house is where it got bound to me. It was one night, I wasn't even there when it started. The daughter of the babysitter was going to the bathroom, and they had one of those like shower heads that are on a hose. All of a sudden, the shower head falls and starts flailing around as if water's like just splurting out of it. But obviously, there's no water coming out. Daughter freaks out, runs out. The next day while I'm there, she tells me about this and asks me to go down there to see it with her. We go down there, shower head's back where it is, or where it's meant to be. We walk in, 3 seconds pass, lights start to flicker, door slams, and the shower head falls and starts flailing again. The daughter starts freaking out. Me, being 4 at the time, I didn't care. I just went to go pick it up because I'm like, this isn't normal. I go to pick it up. I blink. All of a sudden, the shower head and me are flipped. Shower head's on a wall that leads directly into the hallway, when before it was on the opposite wall. And I'm facing the direction as if I was just holding it. I look at the daughter. She starts screaming. I'm like, okay. I put the shower head up. I blink and it's back to normal. Shower head's where it's meant to be. I'm facing the direction I first was. And I asked her why she started to scream after I picked up the shower head. And she said that all of a sudden, my whole left side, like straight down the middle, turned pure black. My veins glowed white, or not white, yellow. My eye grew white. Just, there was no pupil. It was just pure white. From that moment on, through up until about the age of 10, 24/7, I just kept seeing one of those like shadows that you would normally see in like the corner of your eye. But it was always like, it would always get to the center of my vision before it would like scurry away. It, instead of like, oh, like barely being able to see it, it's just right there, and then it goes. As if it's like trying to let me acknowledge that it's there. And I noticed that it had preferences, like it would prefer trees, bushes. And it was just a minor thing. I grew numb to it. Around the age of 10, it stopped being there 24/7 and started only showing up occasionally. But it was at the age of 13 I made first contact with it. Well, it made contact with me. I was at my cousin's house up in Michigan. He had already told me that the house is notoriously haunted. So I'm like, okay, I can expect to see maybe something like supernatural. And first day passes, nothing happens. Second day passes, nothing happens. On the third day, we go to bed. I'm on the right side. He's on the left side. And the way his room was set up was you would have to walk straight up a flight of stairs and you'd be directly in his room. Mm-hmm. It was a very squared off room with a bay window right next to the bed. So we went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I have no clue what time it is. I wake up. I'm on the left side now and he's on the right. And I just see this shadow figure in the corner. I can make out small details of it. It definitely was humanoid. And it seemed familiar at first, and I wasn't sure why or how. And that's because, like, as the years passed, I realized I started to look more and more like it did back then. And it continues to, like, look like me currently, or like me maybe like a year from now or 2 years from now. But I thought that was strange that I kind of turned into, like, looking more and more like it as the years passed. But back to that room situation, it was just there in the corner, just full up, like on the ceiling corner, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Just plastered to the wall almost, and it just instantaneously, like in a blink of an eye almost, snaps straight from there directly over me, and it just says, "You don't have anything to worry about." And that's it. It's gone. And I just sit there in awe. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go back to sleep. Because I didn't know what else to do. I'm not going to wake up my cousin to freak him out. So I go back to bed. And when I wake up, I'm back on the right side. And he's back on the left. Years passed, and I want to say it was like when I was like 14 or 15. I went to a friend's house here in my hometown, and she said, yeah, like it's another house that's like notoriously haunted. She's like, yeah, we have something here. We don't know what it is, but we have something. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And her mother are both mediums, but not like strong ones. And all that they know is that there's at least one child in the house. They don't know if it's ghost or if it's just taking on the form of a child. They just know it's there. And she says that the child normally torments her, either leaving bruises, throwing things across the room, but it's always specifically her. It's not her siblings, it's not her parents, it's always her. And the first time I ever went to her house, and I found out about this, is when everything just burst into chaos almost. It was just me and her in the house. Everyone else was at a baseball game because our little brothers play baseball. And one of our friends was meant to come over later. And we're there, and we immediately start hearing bumps just all over the house. Banging pipes from the basement, something banging in the garage, something banging upstairs, as if like something's agitated. And like maybe an hour passes by, and I realize I have like a 3-pronged scratch mark like right on my arm. And she immediately goes, whatever is in the house does not like you. I'm like, okay, don't like that. Our friend comes in the house, and we found out in more recent years that, because my friend, he has a girlfriend who's a much stronger medium. She comes from a lineage of mediums. He has a plastic wrap aura. So normally when supernatural things happen, he doesn't notice them. So you know it was bad when he was noticing everything happening in the house with us. He got in there, we went to the basement because he's like, let's go investigate it. We get down there, the bangs start getting louder and louder, more violent. We go upstairs. All of a sudden, we see the little girl upstairs near her brother's room. And all we see is a quick flash, the door closes, and we hear all hell break loose in that room. Where at that point, I'm assuming that this soul lapse finally decided to bust in now that the little girl revealed itself to us, meaning I'm guessing it was going to harm us, and decided to attack it in order to protect me and my friends. After that point, we got out of the house until the family got back, because we were not going to risk something like that happening again. And every time I go back there, it's always a situation of everything's super calm. But the moment I leave, something super violent happens. So we've come to the conclusion that it's because of my soul lapse, that whatever's in her house absolutely hates it. And then that kind of continues on throughout high school. I'd go over to her house. It would get real quiet. Everything would be completely normal. And then the moment I leave, something tries to throw something at her or leaves extra bruises on her, whatever it is. It just does not like the soul lapse. I want to say it was my sophomore year is the next major event where I went on a trip down south to Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia. It was me and my mom and my cousin. This is the same cousin whose house I went to during that summer when I was 13. We went down there and the trip was perfectly fine up until we hit Savannah, Georgia, where that being one of the most haunted cities in the USA, right next to, I think, New Orleans. We got there, and the moment I got there, even before we got there, like 2 miles out from being there, I immediately felt my lungs like start to compress, as if just something's just squeezing them. The closer and closer we get, the more that compression felt. The entire time walking throughout the town, I always saw my soul lapse. It was always there, constantly. And this is the first time in years it's been 24/7 in my vision. And the 2 nights that we stayed there, I thought it was a dream at the time, where I would be transported to this world, similar to like that one scene from Doctor Strange where the city is like lapsing over itself.
Mm-hmm.
And all I would just hear is noises from all over the place for what would feel like hours upon hours. Well, my one friend, the one friend who has the girlfriend, who's a medium, she said that's probably while I was there in my sleep, I was being transported to a convergence of universes or worlds. And that the soul lapse, all the noises, was the soul lapse furiously bouncing around trying to protect me from whatever was in there. And then one of the houses specifically, it was a house that, if I remember this correctly, a woman was murdered by her husband. The husband then committed suicide. And then the 4 people that lived in the house after that event all committed suicide. And it's one of the houses that you can tour in. And the tour guide immediately said, like, we were meant to tour in there. My cousin got scared and said, hey, let's not do this. I don't feel good about that. I'm like, okay, neither do I. So I'm fine with that. And then we were listening to the tour guide in the background. He's like, if you ever see the woman, just leave the house. If you see the woman that lived there who got murdered by her husband, just leave. You are in immediate danger. Just don't even risk it. And as we're just looking at the house, because me and my mom were a little bit of architect fanatics. We love the house. It's beautiful looking. I look in one of the windows and I see the woman. And I make like good eye contact with her for a solid minute. And all of a sudden she moves as if she just got bodied by like Tom Brady, just absolutely tackled. And that was the only moment while in Savannah that I didn't really see the soul lapse like in my vision, was that singular moment where that woman got tackled in the window. I'm like, okay. I don't know if it just immediately saw it as a threat and just was not going to risk it, or if it could sense that it was going to actively hurt me even from inside the house. I'm not sure. After the Savannah trip, skip forward to like literally like a couple, like not even 2 full months ago. This is when all the details start to more so come in. because this is when I started to finally make contact with it, finally ask it yes or no questions, and it responding with either a gut feeling, meaning yes, a throwing up sensation, meaning no, a cough, meaning a definite no, because that's just coming from the throwing up feeling. And it could also give like a swirl, like right around where my heart is for like don't know or like indifferent. And it started immediately after my buddy's girlfriend. She pulled out a couple of like pagan things to just look at me and my buddy and the girl who we go to the house often, the one with the spirits inside. She looks at the girl first, and the girl apparently has 4 spirits in the house. So father, mother, and then a son and a daughter. So we started to realize that maybe the banging wasn't the daughter that we heard, but it was probably the father and the soul lapse when earlier in that first occurrence in her house, in the first girl's house. We assumed that was actually the father and the soul lapse fighting, not the daughter and the soul lapse. Because apparently the children aren't actually hostile, they're just more so mischievous. The father's the only one that's apparently hostile in the house. That's when we also found out that my buddy has the plastic wrap aura that allows him to just kind of negate all senses of the supernatural, unless they are really that strong. And that he had his grandmother's spirit as well as some demon attached to him. And then when she got to me, she said immediately she doesn't know what it was. The best thing she can classify it as is an alpha demon, just because of how strong it was. And that, if anything, as much of a bad idea as it normally is to give like ghosts or demons names, to try and give it a name to see if it will converse more. Because she said it didn't seem malevolent like most demons do. So I did. I started conversing, trying to figure out a name. I started going through bird names because we were in a park during this. And I heard birds. So I'm like, maybe wants a bird name. I don't know. And then my buddy with the plastic wrap aura says, what about Carmen? I asked it that, and that was the only name it had a resounding yes to. So we started calling it Carmen. And this whole time, my buddy is just throwing out random things of what it could be. And it seemed like everything he threw out was kind of correct. How somehow the souls within it are linked to me. They don't know how, but they're linked to me. How some of them may just be me from the future, and they don't know it, I don't know it. It seemed like just every idea he threw out was correct. So we started to assume that the soul lapse was using my buddy as a medium of some sort to converse with us for more complicated answers that weren't just yes, no. And that's when I found out that it was 2,000 souls. Not all of them were human. Not all of them are even of creatures of this universe or world. That the first soul was roughly 20,000 years ago. Between 20,000 and 20,100. And that the specific soul count is roughly between 2000 and 2020. So, well, I have a Google Doc because I've been trying to like find out all the different details. I'm trying to see what else we found out about it. Not all human. Okay, they can be in multiple universes at once. Like dimensions, realities, whatever you want to call them, and here across them all. But our reality in particular, it has issues with. For whatever reason, the supernatural creatures of our reality, it can't kill like it can in others. And it can't fully form like it can in the other realities. Which is why I'm assuming it has this shadowy figure. As to why it looked like me, we also assumed that it's just because it got bound to me. And because it's not a creature particularly constricted by time, it just took on a form of me that would make sense. Let's see. Oh, the only thing that's like weird about the souls in particular that we found, other than just not all of them belonging to this universe, is that none of them know their past other than what exactly they were, like as far as like a creature would go. Like each soul knew what being they were. They just don't know specifics, except for two of them, which for whatever reason knew each other before being part of the Time-Lapse. They don't know their names, but they know that they knew each other. Let's see. What else? First occurrence of this. Yeah, I just have a Google Doc. I'm reading through all the bullet points of all the things that we found out. We have a theory that it can interact with objects in our universe, but that has not been debunked nor confirmed. The only thing that we have is the door slamming that one time in my friend's house when it went to go fight whatever it fought. But we're not sure if that was the Time-Lapse or the spirit that it was fighting. We have no clue. That's the only reason why we have that theory to begin with, is because we don't know. Oh, and then I think the last detail that we found out is, as far as the Time-Lapse is aware of, being bound to me is the first time it's ever been bound to something. Over the 20,000 years that it existed, from the first soul to the couple last souls before it got bound to me, never has it happened once where they got bound to another creature that's living. And then since it's bound to me, roughly only like 3 souls have been added to the Time-Lapse. Oh, no. There was one detail as well that I missed. They did confirm that with each new soul added, they do get stronger and stronger, which is why my friend probably immediately thought of it as an alpha demon, because it's so beyond powerful that most things that are supernatural that try to harm me, it can just absolutely body.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else, any other details or anything that you want to say before I start with my questions?
The only other thing I can think of is a couple weeks ago, a pack of something, we're assuming it was skinwalkers, attached themselves to me. And it got to the point where like I would see one, and I thought it was only one entity, not several, but it was enough to make the Time-Lapse go silent, basically, where it wouldn't answer anything I asked. It wouldn't respond at all. And when I met up with the one friend who's like a stronger medium, she said, yeah, you have, it's not one entity, it's multiple now following you. And that the multiple is probably like either skinwalkers or Wendigos hunting in a pack. But that they're, for whatever reason, coming at me one by one, which I'm assuming that's the Time-Lapse is doing, where they don't want to fight it and it's just one after another. They get brave enough to go after me, but then immediately get bodied. And the only thing that like helps the case that they are probably Wendigos or skinwalkers was that they became more active when I was near forests. as to where the other times it happened when I was on the open road and I would just see them in passing, or one even jumped in the back of my truck real quick. And then when she found out that I had the other entities, she quickly dispelled them from me, unlinking them from me. And I made sure that she didn't unlink the soul lapse, because I want to find out what it is, and if there's any way to like make stronger contact with it outside of just yes and no. And I want to also find out why it's here, what sent it, what brought it to be even existing.
Okay. Well, Harley, I got a bunch of questions for you. So I guess if you're ready, I want to go ahead and start with them.
Shoot for it, man.
All right. So I'd like to start with, you mentioned these souls. I guess that you were able to see that's from your linked in the males of your family. Do you think that is because of like past reincarnation of families or lives of people that are connected to your family, or?
I'm not exactly sure. It's something I haven't put an insane amount of thought of, mostly because it's a thing of it happens, and it mostly only happens in the younger ones. Like as we grow older, we normally lose the ability. It's just that for whatever reason, generation after generation, it's gotten stronger, which makes me believe that the souls that do pass that had the ability are passing it on to become even stronger to the ones that are newly born.
Okay.
That's my only theory about that.
Now, does your dad still have it?
No, my dad's not had it for a long time. The last occurrence he had of that was when he was, I want to say around the ages of 6 or 8, somewhere in that age gap was the last time that occurred to him.
Okay. Are you currently still able to see any kind of ghosts or I guess entities that are from the spirit world?
Not that I'm aware of. I feel like I can sense them, but I can't really see them.
Okay. All right. So you said you would talk to your grandpa after he died. Did he ever give you any kind of like answers or anything that could answer something to any question you had about the afterlife?
Not really. I was still at a young enough age where I didn't think it was important to ask that kind of thing. I was just glad to have my grandpa back in a sense, because he was my best buddy. He was the only one that understood me when I was little. So it was just a thing of I was overwhelmed with happiness that I could see him, talk to him again.
Okay.
And then he would mostly sit there and just like comfort me about like everything's going to be okay kind of thing. And then just talk to me about my day and stuff like that.
Now, when this first happened to you, what did you think? Like, was you scared?
I wasn't really scared. I was kind of numb to it, because as like really little babies, like as little as like, not even kidding, before we're even able to talk, we're able to see the spirits. It's only after we're able to talk though that we like are able to like say their names of like people that we've never met or even had a chance to meet.
Yeah. Why do you think your family on the men's side are able to do this?
I'm not sure. The best theories I can come up with on the spot is maybe like someone in the past made a deal, or they were just born with the ability and it just got passed down. Those are my two best bets on the spot of what it could be.
Okay. Do you know what your ancestry is?
My ancestry is basically 100% European, with like 0.03% being like North African, and then I want to say like 0.04 being it when I looked at the DNA test, it was like, I think it classified it as like Southwestern Asian.
Okay.
But I wasn't sure if that meant Middle Eastern or if it meant like the area just outside the Middle East. I wasn't sure. But other than that, it's European, literally everywhere in Europe except for Iceland. So for whatever reason, my ancestors were movers.
Okay. So when you went over to, I was kind of confused a little bit when you were talking about the story of the shower hose, based on just, I guess, pretty much where you were at, what was happening.
Okay.
You said that that you and I guess the shower hose switched sides. Can you explain that to me a little bit more?
Yeah. So when you walked into the bathroom was really tiny. It was just on the far right in the back corner, there's toilet. In the middle was the sink. And on the left, taking up that entire wall, was like a shower tub kind of thing.
Okay.
The shower head hose was on the far side. So on like the same wall that the toilet, the sink is on. It was on that side. It was on that wall. When I say we flipped sides, I mean that the shower hose just went from that back wall to the front wall.
Okay.
And I stayed in the same spot, but I did a 180 without actually moving.
Wow. Okay. What do you think caused that? What do you think happened there?
My buddy's girlfriend, who's a medium, suspects that it's because that in the moment it took me to a like reality that's slightly different from our own. Like, and kind of like those things where it's like it's almost identical, but there's always like small details different. That's what she thinks, because it seems like every time or the two times that it like majorly came in like basically physical contact with me, that happened, where the shower head got flipped and then me and my cousin got flipped in the bed.
Yeah.
So that's her theory on it. It's just taking me to a different reality where it can actually talk to me in a better sense or do something to me in a better sense. Just make content in general.
Well, I've heard of when people, their frequencies, every parallel universe has like a different frequency, but sometimes people can almost, I guess, frequency rise or lower, and then they're just in a different world. So it's kind of cool to hear that, you know, something happened to where you kind of was just right to be in a whole nother, you know, I guess, parallel universe of some sort. So, and it's happened to you twice. Now, has it happened, anything like small in detail happened to you, but just like that?
I feel like throughout my entire life, there's always just been small items that I will leave in a very specific place, not touch for months or even years. And just one day, right, like I will see it like the night before I go looking for it, but the next day it's just not there. It's somewhere completely different, or it's on the other side of the room, or it's in another room entirely, or it just poops out of my own existence, I guess.
Okay.
Never to be seen again.
Now, when you were seeing this shadow being in the corner of your eye, what kind of detail could you make out, if any?
I can make out actual hair, face. I can make out even muscular structure. And I can make out that it had some form of clothes on. The only reason I could tell that much was I could see its hands perfectly, but its feet looked like it had like socks on or tights on, to where you can't see the individual toes.
Okay. All right.
That's the only thing that signified that it was somehow clothed.
All right.
Or at least in form seemed clothed.
Now, when this being finally decided to show itself to you, why did it decide to show itself to you right then and there?
My friend explains, my buddy's girlfriend is a medium. I'm just going to refer to her as the medium.
Yeah. Okay.
The medium explained to me that normally when you start to reach some form of maturity. Sometimes if you have a gift or a power, sometimes it will unlock as you mature. And she said the same thing with spirits. If there's a spirit following you or a demon following you, sometimes it will choose to start showing itself at those like certain points of maturity, because it starts to give the impression that, oh, you're mature enough now to understand without just immediately freaking out and passing out.
Mm-hmm.
You have like the brain capacity to handle that. It exists, and there's nothing you can really do about it other than it exists. It's not a thing that you can just easily make go away or whatever.
Okay. Now, was you scared when it was up the wall and then instantly appeared right over you?
I was definitely startled, to say the least. I was scared at first when I first saw it, because I'm like, oh God, it's just some demon that's in the house coming here to kill me. And then I got a better look and it looked familiar, and then it jumped and I got instantly startled. Because it's just basically literally like flash lightning almost, just boom, boom.
Wow.
That's another thing I forgot to mention. When it was in that corner, it emitted a form of light that was pure black. Like if like imagine you put like a light bulb to a wall and it gives that like glow effect.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that, but it was doing that with shadow rather than light.
Okay.
So just for whatever reason, it was just emitting black. Or not black, but it was emitting black light.
It's very interesting to think about, for a lot of people, we're made from light. And then if you think about entities, they are equal. We just don't realize that they have their own type of light, and it's a shadowy light. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, when he came and like it just happened really quickly, and he said what he said to you, was it telepathic, like mind speak, or was it physically verbal?
It looked like it moved its mouth,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't hear it like if it was speaking. It felt more telepathic than verbal, but it looked like it was speaking it verbally.
Okay. Now, did you see what the little dead girl looked like when you was at your friend's house?
All I saw was just hair and then gone.
Okay.
It was like kind of like that, just like stereotypical like ghoulish blue-gray kind of thing.
Yeah.
It looked like it maybe had like a piece of skin just completely gone from its face.
Ooh.
Other than that, I can't think of any specific details.
Okay. All right. And was this the first time that this entity that's attached to you decided to, fight off another entity like that ghost girl?
It's definitely the first time I actively saw it do it.
Okay.
Or at least the first time I knew it happened. Obviously, I'm assuming that it only shows up. Like, I'm assuming for the first 10 years of my life, it was there 24/7 to make sure nothing came around me. But I'm assuming after I hit the age of 10, from that point on, it only showed up when something supernatural and dangerous was nearby.
Okay.
To either ward it off or to fight it off.
Okay. Does your friend still get attacked by that ghost girl till this day?
As far as we're aware of, yes. But now we're not 100% sure whether it's the girl or the father that's actually hurting her.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But we do know that kids themselves have attached onto her. So now the kids can roam outside of the house with her. But it's definitely a situation where the kids don't like being near me. Whenever I'm around, they just kind of disappear. And the medium can testify to that whenever I just get anywhere close to her, to the other girl, that the kids just nowhere to be seen. But if the girl is like off in the distance walking towards us, she can see the kids trailing her.
Yeah. Okay. For the audience, I know you kind of gave a description early on, but just so people can understand what you were talking about, could you give a description of this soul lapse for the audience?
Yeah, the soul lapse, as far as physical features go, it looks very much like I do currently, or maybe me in like a couple years, I can imagine. It was a very like, it was much more fit than I look currently.
Okay.
Much more fit, a little like thinner, like slightly older. And then as far as what it actually is, it's just, or I guess back to the features, I didn't finish out features. It looked like me a couple years, but more fit. It was pure black, but not so black where it was just a silhouette like most shadow people are. It's where you can still see what it is. Bright yellow glowing eyes, and then pure black skin with like that weird like shadow light coming from it.
Okay. All right.
And then as of what it actually is, it's 2,000 soul, or roughly 2,000 souls accumulated over the course of roughly 20,000 years.
Okay. So now that house where the family died and committed suicide, do you think that drew in a very powerful energy?
It definitely did. Because definitely while standing near it, my lungs felt more compressed than it did throughout like, the rest of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Just definitely during like any point in the city, really, that was like notoriously extra haunted than the rest. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Okay.
Just my lungs would just feel more like constricted.
So when did you come across being able to sense, I guess, other entities through your body?
Roughly after I stopped seeing my grandfather after his passing. So a little bit after, like maybe during still the age of 9 or like at the age of 10, I started realizing that I can feel just like the energies of when something's nearby.
Okay.
But I definitely feel like it's more so natural energies that I can feel. So it's more so undead spirits rather than just any normal like supernatural spirit. It's normally someone that's undead, or if I can like feel, or I can feel like the energies of like elements, I guess, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So if I'm near fire, I feel like a different vibration. Like it always comes in through my back. Like it reaches around, comes through my back, and it feels differently than like air or earth or water.
Okay.
And then the undead spirits just give off an entirely different feeling altogether, as if the air is like being purged. Sliced. Yeah, sliced is the best way to put it.
Okay. So like the oxygen's getting sucked out of the room, or just heavier?
Like when I feel the energy gets seeped in to like into my body of like the air,
mm-hmm.
It feels like there's just a weird like gap out of nowhere.
Okay. All right.
Like even if it's like sometimes it's like a singular pinpoint, sometimes it's like large gap, as if like almost like the difference between like a ballpoint pen and like a full-on axe.
Yeah.
Can be like the difference.
Okay.
And I don't know what causes the difference. All I know is that if I'm really paying attention, I can definitely sense it.
All right. Now, if you have one, what is your family and your religion, if you have one?
My family's religions, my father's Lutheran by birth, and he stuck with Lutheran, but he's not a very religious man himself. My mother's very religious, and I can't remember if she's also Lutheran or if she's like Christian.
Okay.
I can't remember. And then me and myself, by birth, I'm Lutheran, but I've chosen to stay neutral altogether. But lately I've been thinking of looking into paganism, especially since I can like feel the energies of like elements.
Yeah.
Like maybe looking into that can somehow help me with that specific thing.
Okay. All right. Because I'm trying to see if maybe it's connected some way with that too. But if you're open and you don't restrict your mind on things, I think your body will be more open to, the outside world as well.
Yeah.
Now, how and why do you think this being attached to you?
I don't quite know. I even asked it myself. If it knows, it doesn't. It doesn't know why it exists. It doesn't know why it's bound to me. It doesn't even know how it got bound to me. All it knows is that it's made by force, by some higher being. Doesn't know what that higher being is. So all around over what it actually is, it has no clue. Outside of it being just roughly 2,000 souls.
All right. Does it have any kind of personality?
They all have a personality that's all similar. It's very numbed, very flowy, just like ready to go with whatever.
Okay.
Some of the souls within it are a little bit more violent. Some of them, like, they all have variations.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are more violent. Some of them are more just peaceful. Some of them are more happy. Some of them are sad. Just, it's like if you had a room with 2,000 people in it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they all have similar attributes. Like they're all kind of just accepting of whatever happens. Like they never questioned why they got bound to me until I questioned it myself.
Yeah.
And like I asked them, they were like, like they gave that like swirl feeling.
Yeah.
Where they just didn't know. And they just didn't care either to think about it. They're just like, it happens. Whatever.
By the way, like they react to you, what kind of age do you think they would be if they were human, like just like you in physical?
I'd say, like, as far as like the way it looks me physically,
mm-hmm.
I'd probably estimate around 20 or 21.
Okay. Okay.
Because the face is very much not far off. It's just very much the body looks very different.
Okay. Now, say if you can ask this question eventually, ask if they're able to, take all those souls and put them in an empty vessel. Like say a person who, for whatever reason doesn't have a soul. I don't know if people are could be born without souls, but I've heard a few stories. So it makes me wonder if the people that have schizophrenia that get locked up in the mental hospitals, if possibly that's what happens, because you just described saying they don't know why they're all attached or how they got there. And, they go into a person instead of attaching to them, attach inside of them some way or another. So what do you think about that?
So wait, like I just typed it down in the Google Doc. So if I ever get the ability to communicate more, I guess, complexly with it,
mm-hmm.
to ask it if it can take on a vessel, like another vessel with a soul or an empty vessel?
Empty vessel.
All right. Yeah, I'll definitely have to find an empty vessel, I guess, that it can try and take on.
Yeah.
Because I already asked if it can like possess objects. It said no. But when I asked about people, it didn't know because it never tried.
Yeah. Does it ever, like, are you the leader for it? Like, does it look up to you pretty much as a significant parent or like a leader type? Or
No.
do they think, no?
It very much looks at me as, I guess the best way to explain it is Do you know like the old like Chinese legend of the guy whose lifeline is tied to a log?
No, I like to hear that though.
It's an old myth where there was a guy who was completely indestructible, unkillable. And I could be wrong, but this guy also might have been able to like shapeshift into different animals. That might have been a different guy in mythology. I can't remember, but he was invincible, with the only exception being a singular log or a piece of timber, or whatever you want to call it. And if that log or timber would ever to burn, he'd die.
Okay.
That was his only lifeline. I think that's how the soul lapse looks at me, because it doesn't know what happens if I die.
Okay. So that's why they try so hard to protect you, because they know if you die, they die, or something happens to them.
They assume something's going to happen to them because they've never been bound to something before. They don't know what happens. They're just assuming if I die, it dies.
Have you been able to come across another person with this like similar experience?
I have not, but there was a Reddit post I read the other night, or I guess got a glimpse of last night, that I wasn't able to fully read because I was dozing off.
Okay.
That the first thing I saw was like shadow person that's unnatural. And I have it saved. I have to like look at it and read it over to like make sure. But like that was my first reaction was, is this someone with something like me? Because I think the exact thing for it was like a shadow clone or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something that he was calling a shadow clone.
How would someone be able to tell apart a shadow being, a normal shadow being, and a shadow being that has thousands of souls or entities connected into it?
I don't think there's a real easy way outside of actually being able to ask it that and have it respond.
Okay.
Because from my experience and what I've like learned already about like, because the first thing I looked up was if it was a shadow person. From what I learned, all shadow people don't really have defined features.
Right.
They're all silhouettes of some sort. Maybe they'll look like they'll like have extended limbs or be tall, or one guy's case they were buff, and another guy's case he had the common hat man.
Yeah.
But the one thing that connected them all is they had no real features outside of being a silhouette of some sort.
Okay.
And then the closest thing I can think of that might look close or identical to the soul lapse is maybe like a shadow doppelganger or something.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't know many supernatural creatures that might be able to even come close to looking like a soul lapse.
Okay.
Because as far as I'm aware of, the soul lapse can shapeshift if it chooses, but it doesn't like to. I don't know if that's just because of the personality of it, or if it just puts it through some sort of like weird sensation it doesn't like or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So if you think about it, for people that say a person dies, they actually pass on, but they'll see a ghost or something that's here on Earth that resembles the person that died. And I've been told that the person that dies actually leaves here, and whatever's here is old energy. But what if it's actually these beings that watched, like a shadow being that watched this person throughout life and took on their form and their personality, and was somehow connected to them. So when that person dies and leaves, they get stuck here because they're darkness, they're a dark light. And maybe that's what people see, which ends up, being a demon of some sort, because that person does not act like the person they once knew. Instead, they're doing, negative, evil, mischief things. So
yeah.
that really has me thinking. So it's kind of crazy to think that. And I wonder if that's what that is. If people that are left behind, those aren't the souls or the people. Those are the attachments of whatever energy or shadow energy was once, somehow linked to that person. That's crazy. It really makes you think. Now, say for like when you were talking about your friend saying that her dad, I think it was, had this plastic wrap aurora from all super.
That's my one buddy. That's my guy buddy.
Okay, and that he has this plastic wrap aurora from the supernatural. So does that mean that pretty much nothing supernatural, he will never experience anything like that? He'll just live like a normal life?
It's a thing where if something does happen to him, it either has to, one, be linked to him very closely, or be extremely powerful.
Okay.
Which is probably why, like, when we're in the house, like the one girl's house who has the family, he never saw the girl when we were there on that like first day when I went over there. He never saw the girl like me and the other girl did.
Okay.
But he definitely was hearing all the banging and slamming and the ruckus that happened when the room got shut down.
Okay.
He just didn't see. But he's had experiences where like he's seen like a hand appear in his room. Like he described it as like it was a sleep paralysis thing, so he wasn't sure if it was sleep paralysis demon or if it was the demon that's linked to him or if it was his grandmother just messing with him. Because he had sleep paralysis one night while on the phone with the medium. He stopped hearing what she was saying. He was just sitting there, numb to the world, when all of a sudden this like long spindly fingers came into the room, but like opened the door slightly and then closed it and like let the fingers barely slip through right before the door closed and then closed it from the outside.
Wow.
But we're not sure if that was the demon, a sleep paralysis demon, or his grandmother messing with him.
Okay.
However, he's also had experiences where like he'll go to bed with like his wallet where he'll just throw it on the floor because he's so tired. But when he wakes up, it's like on his desk. So he's assuming that's his grandmother helping him in a sense.
Yeah. Well, that really makes me think, because when you mentioned that, I was like, well, that would explain why a lot of people, if they have that type of, aura, that's probably why they don't experience anything supernatural, because there's some kind of block on them. And it makes
the way the medium described the plastic wrapped auras forming is they're formed from people who refuse to believe in the supernatural.
Okay.
So people that absolutely refuse to believe that it exists form a plastic wrap aura to absolutely avoid even coming in contact with it. It's like a subconscious type of thing.
Wow. That explains a lot. I wonder if someone actually decides to finally open themselves up, is it easy for that aura to change, or is it hardened, like kind of like a cocoon that it takes a while to, break open?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would assume it depends on how long you like refuse to believe. Just because like obviously as a child, you're very malleable, so it wouldn't matter. Your aura's all over the place.
Yeah.
But the moment you start to grow up and start to just refuse to believe in it, the longer it takes for you to start believing in it, I would guess the longer it takes for that aura to open back up. Like my buddy, but just by hanging out with us enough and like slowly experiencing more and more just by being around us. Because I guess that's what happens when you have someone with an entity attached to them and then two mediums. I guess that's what happens. You start to believe, and like, or at least in his situation, I would assume he's starting to believe like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Because he's hearing all the stories of his girlfriend, the medium, speaking of how she sees spirits, how she sees auras. and all these different things that happens with her. And then the experiences with our one friend at her house where she has the family in the house, and how sometimes they'll make things happen, sometimes they won't. And then there's just me with the whole soul lapse situation.
Yeah.
Where that's our assumption, his aura is starting to open back up. I'd have to ask the medium if his aura is actually opening it up, or if it's just coincidence, because lately he's been seeing actual shadow people. So we wonder if that's linked.
Okay. Do you think that for those people who close themselves off to the supernatural and, kind of harden themselves, do you think they also shut themselves off from the connection to the source or God or anything that's like that?
I think it definitely does shut themselves off from like anything.
Yeah.
Basically anything that's out of like what they would consider the normal world.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because one thing that I've learned from the medium, she said that things like Christianity, Catholicism, things that like have like the Bible, Jesus, and any figures that are like related to that, she says that the supernatural don't like it, not because they're afraid of it, but because it angers them.
Really?
The way she describes it is that stuff like that is like the Bible and all that is actually like fake stories of a God that doesn't exist. And that's why they get so upset about it. Like it's a thing of she's pagan. So it's like there could be a little bit of bias there.
Yeah.
But it's also a thing of it makes more sense when you look at the grand scheme of things. Because if you look at any mythology, any sort of like stories from any culture, everything always gets linked back to nature. The Greek gods, most of them were based after lightning, ocean, death, natural things.
Yeah.
You look at Aztec, there's the sky, once again, just wind in general, death. Like all of them have like natural things. Go to Egypt, you have Ra, the god of the sun. It's all linked back to nature. But the moment you look at Christianity, it's a singular God that's just God of everything.
Yeah. Source. Yeah.
And you even go to like Native Americans, and all their gods and deities are still like, yeah, they're all based in nature. You go to Africa and their old folklore stories, and it's all based in nature.
You're right.
So the way she describes it is those things get angered by things like Christianity and Catholicism and anything that relates back to that.
Now, why do you think that, for instance, it's mainly the name Jesus? Why do you think that has so much power when it comes to, pretty much angering the entities, but also ridding themselves? Like, what causes those entities to disappear, or just kind of like, how does that word really attack them? Anything?
It might be a situation where the ones that do get rid of are ones that have almost been ingrained to think that it's real, if that makes sense. Like almost as if it's like newer age demons, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Ones that grew up with throughout the ages of, oh, Christianity and Catholicism is growing. That means it must be real. And almost, the best way to explain it is just placebo effect, but for demons.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
That's my best explanation for that. As long as you're following the theory that things like Catholicism and Christianity are actually false gods or false God.
Okay. So do you think it's more about the people, if they believe something, they have the power, and so they use that power, and it kind of, for whatever reason, actually really works to fend off any evil? And I guess the people just forget that they have the power themselves.
Yeah.
It's not something that they, it's not somebody else saving them. They are saving themselves by what they believe.
It could definitely be that. My thinking is that in using the name of Jesus, believing in that, and having that power, it's not so much having a power over the demon. Like, yeah, there could be placebo effect going on, but it could also be like a form of aura, like almost like a type of aura magic happening, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Where it's almost amplifying the plastic wrap and almost just completely expelling it away by denying so hard. I'm not sure. It's a thing of I'm very new to the whole like pagan thinking.
Yeah.
Because me and the medium didn't talk a lot mostly until like this year and like maybe last year. But it's definitely more so this year. So
Okay.
I'm kind of new in her thinking and trying to explain it.
If you ever come across the experience, I'd love to hear about it. If say like if you get any answers from the time-lapse entity of any, through why it feels what it feels, because obviously I can't give you an answer, but if you practice any experiments and they're able to give you an answer from that, definitely let me know. Just very curious about it. So now you mentioned that this time-lapse, this entity, is made up of 2000 to 2020 souls, possibly reincarnated as you from different times. Now, what gave you that idea, or what are they able to communicate with you to let you know where they're from? Like, how does that work?
It's mostly a thing of if my buddy, the one with the plastic wrap aura, spurts out anything, I immediately ask the soul lapse, since it's been using him as like some form of medium to communicate more complex answers. So normally he'll just sport something out and I'll just ask it, and the answer is usually yes. Like, that was the big thing. It was the first theory was that it was just me from the future just messing with me.
Yeah.
That was just the original first answer of his. And after I found out I could officially communicate with the soul lapse, I was like, are you me from another time? And I felt the indifference of like a little bit of the soul saying yes, but most of them saying no.
Okay. All right. I can see that.
And then another thing that he spurted out was, because he said this as a joke, he asked if any of them are frogs. And I'm like, I guess it's worth a shot to ask, because why not? Some of them said yes. Most obviously said no. And then I also specified, for the ones that are frogs, are you frogs as we know frogs? And most of them said no, but a couple said yes.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's other planets in the universe, and there's other entities that don't have to have oxygen to obviously survive. So I bet it would be pretty cool if you could find a way to even sketch out some of these entities. I'm really curious to just see what they could look like if you were able to draw them out sometime.
That's honestly probably the biggest end goal of all time. Is as much as I want to find out what the soul lapse is and all that.
Yeah.
I'm also very curious of the souls inside it individually, because some of them are just creatures that we can't even fathom.
Right.
And I'm very curious to see if I can get to a point of communicating where, even if it's like in my dreams, or if I can even get to the point where I can just close my eyes and see the individual souls.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest end goal.
Now, do they all get along being all connected like that?
No.
No.
Like I said earlier, a couple of them are very violent and are very, very much against the idea of being stuck there. Most of them are very complacent though with it. They're just like, whatever, it happens. They're all like, whatever, it happens. But the ones that are violent don't like being there.
Okay.
If that makes sense. They're fine with it happening because it's out of their control, but it doesn't make them happy about it.
Yeah. Now, what do they all have, like some way of, I don't know, taking over independently?
Not
they,
really.
no? Okay.
It's always a thing of, if I ask a question, it's either a yes, no, don't know, or a split of some sort,
Yeah.
where all I feel is percentage.
Okay.
Like, I can even feel the percentage, like when I asked the frog question, the second one,
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely feel the difference between all the souls answering and then only a couple of them. And I can feel the differences between, like, if it's like 50%, 50, or 25, 75, even to the point of like 99, and maybe even just one soul answering at another point.
Do any of them seem like tricksters?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple of them do. If I had to guess, maybe 13% of them.
Okay.
And that might just be, I feel like the 13%, most of them are just doing it out of boredom.
Yeah.
Because they're like, they don't want to be there.
Yeah. Being stuck in unison with several thousand beings, gotta be bored.
As far as how they move, I have no clue how that works.
Okay.
That I guess would have to be very much, probably one of them controls it, or maybe all the ones that are, I guess, worthy by whatever forced them into the body is allowed to control it.
Yeah. Do you think that when you hear about, say, let's talk about the Bible, they talked about these demons who run legions of souls. Do you think that instead of us thinking like they're actual independently, that they're all joined together in one, inside of that one entity?
They're definitely different thought processes constantly running.
Okay.
If they ever agree on anything, it's normally just a very simple yes no question.
Okay. Does the original entity, is he the one that kind of leads everything, or is it all equal?
I'm not sure. As far as I'm aware of, the first soul was a type of gladiator type being.
Mm-hmm.
Human or not, I've not asked, but it's some form of gladiator. It fought for people's entertainment. That's all it knew.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's what's controlling the actual body movement, or if it's like him and others that are deemed worthy by the higher being that put him there, or if it's just a thing of being in that entity itself, the ones that are not worthy are just kicked out by the ones that are.
Okay, I got you now. What is the most passive one that you have that doesn't seem like it fits very much?
The one that just doesn't want to respond to anything. It's like one soul that I know just answers I don't know to most questions.
And do you know anything about their persona?
Not a clue. All I know is that they're just very lazy and just don't want to do anything.
That's so crazy. All right, so now this is more of a statement, I think, than it is a question, but how significant is it for it being 2000 to 2020 souls, with the year being, in the 2000 and 2020 that passed? And then my question with that was, when was you born?
I'm not quite sure. It's very highly coincidental, I feel, because it's also a thing that like they don't all come from the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if that's just a thing. Like, as far as I'm aware of, it definitely slowed down once they got bound to me.
Yeah.
But it's a thing of like, I asked, like, are you like like I was asking like specific numbers, like 2000, and they were like, are you at least 2000 souls? Yes. Are you at least 3000 souls? No. Are you at least 2500, and so on, until I narrowed it down to like 2020.
Okay.
I just didn't, like, I could probably narrow it further to like between 2010, 2020, or 2000 and 2010.
Okay.
But outside of that, 3 souls have joined since they got bound to me.
Okay.
They say that normally the souls used to come like roughly every like 6 to 10 years. So it was like closer to when they got bound, when it just very much slowed down heavy.
So what do the new ones think or say when they first enter?
They're just very confused. It's definitely a thing of those 3 that joined after being bound to me. They definitely know a lot less than the rest.
Yeah.
Because I noticed like right away that those 3 were ones that if I asked anything about like anything in the past, they immediately defaulted to I don't know.
Okay. Man.
So it's not a that also confirms that it's not a collective mind.
Yeah.
Where they share knowledge or anything. They all just exist. They all have individual minds.
What's
but
your
it also
personal? Sorry, go ahead.
It also says though about them that like they don't always share info.
Okay.
If they do at all, because I have no clue if they do or if they don't. I assume that they share at least some information, but it's always probably just like it's probably almost like a click kind of thing rather than like, oh, everyone's got to know.
Now, what's your personal opinion on where these souls are coming from, or why they're coming from there?
I'm very confused about it because that leads not knowing what the being is in itself, if it's linked to anything that's in our reality, or if it's an entirely new thing that none of us have seen before.
Mm-hmm.
It raises that question. It raises what these other realities are like, what the being that put them together is like, why it's here, what even has enough power to control something that's accumulation of 20,000 or not 20,000, roughly 2,000 souls.
Yeah.
Like what has that kind of power that just is able to just keep them together and to even bind them to a mortal being.
Yeah, because it almost sounds like some type of like jail sentence, because their lifespans is apparently going to be as long as a human's life now. You know what I mean?
If the theory that they just die when I die is correct, then yeah, it definitely feels like that.
Now, so when you eventually die, what do you think will happen? I know you don't know, but what's your idea of what will happen?
I have a feeling that if, like, when I eventually do die, I will finally get to meet whatever created the soul lapse to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And it will either just add me to the soul lapse or do as it pleases. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect other than I get to meet it and then it does whatever it wants with me. Maybe I'll get my answers. Maybe I'll get to live in some form of like maybe Valhalla or something. I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know what to expect. Maybe I'll just become part of the soul lapse itself.
How would you feel if that was your afterlife?
Becoming part of the soul lapse?
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be like the rest of them and just not care, because if I don't know what happened before the soul lapse,
yeah,
I probably wouldn't question it.
Can you imagine if they did know what their past life was? Can you imagine how miserable they would be because they knew what they used to be and now they're stuck? So I could see why that would be some type of torture.
Yeah. I really don't know what's more torturous, not knowing like every detail about your life and then moving on to something like that, or not knowing anything except like the general idea of what you were.
Yeah. Do they eat or anything like that to sustain themselves? No?
Nope. They just exist. They don't need They don't need oxygen, food, water, sleep. They don't need any form of like nutrient or mineral.
Wow.
They
Do you
just
ever see some type of like energy feeding of any kind?
no. I don't see any sort of energy feeding from them. The only thing I could think of is like maybe that's what they were doing in the other realities, because like I said earlier, they can exist across multiple realities at once.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if like maybe they're doing something there. All I know is that they can't do it here because one of the questions I asked them when I first went on that first like 100 million questions when I first found out I can contact them. One of the questions I asked was like, can you kill the spirits of this world? They immediately said no. I asked if they can do it of other realities, and they said yes. And then I asked them, do you know why you can't kill them in this reality? No clue. So for whatever reason, our reality just has some form of, it's either because it's bound to me, or if it's just our reality is at whatever frequency it is that it just can't mess with them.
Yeah. When you think about it, you know, say that we're light, you know, but we're the spiritual light being that's inside of a human body. You know, in the yin yang, there's always, you know, a little bit of light in the darkness and a little bit of dark in the light. And so maybe that's what it is a yin yang. The darkness completes the light, you know, and it's not necessarily attached to your physical human body. It's attached to your light, but it takes on your physical body because it doesn't know nothing else. That'd be crazy. Yeah.
That's interesting to think about.
Because I mean, think about it. If they're really trying to figure out what they are and who they are, they're going to go towards the light, right?
Yeah.
And they might not see us as human beings. They might see us as auras or lights, and so they're like trying to find where they need to go, you know. And maybe that's how the souls are compiling, because they're like, oh, here's a big group of people. Let me go over here.
That also would match up with how my aura is, because the medium says that I have a very yellow aura.
Okay.
Which first of all, that matches the color of the eyes of the soul lapse. They're yellow.
Mm-hmm.
But the medium also described that yellow auras are typically what you can describe as a chameleon aura, where they will just try to fit in to whatever kind of like energy is around them. So if certain people act this way, you'll act that exact same way around those people. But if another group acts an entirely different way, you can flip-flop between the two almost instantaneously, just because you're like an ultimate people pleaser with a yellow aura.
Yeah. Wow. That would make sense too, because so I don't know if you've ever read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but they say that, you know, you go through this 14-day trial of seven days of pretty much good manifestation, 7 days of really horrible manifestation. And if you can't realize that this is all manifestation from your thoughts, you're going to be, you know, getting chased until you find a light. They say that there's more than one kind of light. The white light goes to the source, but the different lights lead to a new reincarnation of something you obviously didn't learn. So if auras are connected to these lights, I can see these souls going through there and getting attached to an aura of whatever that light was. Instead of being reincarnated into, you know, a human being, they're I don't know, brought into this entity that's connected to the human or something. I don't know. I feel like maybe there's something really big out there that needs to learn something, you know, from you or from the light or from whatever frequency, you know. If they're like gladiators and warriors, maybe they need to find peace, and peace they could fit in with something that's, you know, obviously not going to be out there murdering people. But you know, they're violent as heck, but so maybe they need to learn, hey, you know, this is what life can be. These are the things that are open that you're able to do. And I don't know, I just feel like maybe that could be some type of connection too. Your friend said something that really triggered me, for an idea of what makes this entity or this demon different from other malevolent entities.
I'm really not sure.
Okay.
I'm really not sure because I don't know. Another friend, it's a friend of the medium who is another type of medium, but different kind.
Mm-hmm.
She said that it's a guardian spirit of some sort.
Okay.
But I don't think it's a guardian spirit in the sense of any culture on our reality sees it. It's just the general term of it's here to protect you. But I don't know if that's what she's sensing because it feels the need to protect me, to keep me alive or whatever. I think that might honestly be the only thing that keeps it from being malevolent, is just it doesn't know what happens if I die, and it can't interact a whole lot with our world, if at all, outside of the supernatural beings other than itself.
Yeah. Now, so you already answered how, because you didn't know how these souls combine to each other, but like, why on earth out of all places, and why do you, you know, what makes it so significant that they came to Earth to do it, and this universe, not a parallel one?
I really have no clue. It's a thing of, you'd think 2,000 souls, 20,000 years, a higher being that's forcing them together and forced them to bind with whatever being it sent them to.
Yeah.
You'd think it wouldn't be me, especially because it wasn't even in my own house. It was in the house of a babysitter. And it first made its appearance a night before I even arrived there. Because I'm never there. I wasn't ever there at night. I was always there like during the morning till like maybe 2 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was very strange that it happened at night when I wasn't even there around a person like that. Because I have the feeling that it might not have been mentally attached to me, but it might have been meant to be attached to the babysitter's daughter, since both occurrences happened when she was around.
Yeah.
But it might have just been the coincidence that I was the only one that I was the first one that she brought to go see that was brave enough to touch it, to like touch the shower head and pick it up. And
yeah,
that's what bound me, and the soul lapse.
The courage, you know, the fearlessness. I can see that. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now, why do you think the soul lapse went silent when skinwalkers would enter?
It's either because it was one using me as bait to make sure it got all of them, or it was genuinely having a hard time with that many entities of possibly whatever magnitude of power they were, all coming at me at once. Because I don't know how many entities there were. All I was told is that there were many. Like the medium told me that there were many entities after you. She couldn't really count them. It was just there are many. I'm like, okay. Can you get rid of them? She's like, yeah. Just give me a moment. I'll do this thing. I'm like, okay. And she did her thing, and they're gone, as far as I'm aware of.
Why are these entities after you? Do you know?
I think it was just I was in the area and they just were like, because it's a thing of me and my friends. We hang out by forests decently often at night.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it just saw me and it was like, oh yes, I'm gonna attack this kid. We're all gonna like. It was like a pack of them. They linked to me for whatever reason, either because of the aura, the personality, whatever it was. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna get this kid.
Yeah.
And it was just the awful mistake because of the soul lapse that's just nearby waiting.
And did she say that your soul lapse would attack these entities?
Yeah. It
Oh,
was a
wow.
combination of her. It was a combination of her telling me that and me physically seeing like the entities show up and then almost get like pulled away.
Yeah. Wow. You just kind of reminded me of just a second ago, what we were just talking about, where you said that some of these were like warriors that are attached to you, and when you did go towards that shower hose without being scared or fearful, think about warriors. They're not fearful. They just go in and do it.
Yeah.
So maybe that they were, you reminded them of something they was, or a little bit of something of who they used to be. So that could be a thing too. Yeah. Now, do other people have soul lapse entities?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware of, this is the first occurrence, but there's no way of knowing for certain unless I look around online, on Reddit, on wherever I can find information. Because like I said, last night I saw a story that I didn't get to read quite yet that made me think that maybe it's another soul lapse, but I obviously need to read into the story.
Okay. All right. Well, Harley, you have answered all my questions. I do have one last thing to ask. Is there any possible way that you can get me in contact with this medium that you talk to? Because I have a lot of questions myself, and I would like to kind of just, I don't know, see what kind of answers she has. And
yeah, I'll have to ask her what she thinks, and if she says yeah, then I'll get you in contact with her.
Okay, cool. All right. Now you are running a subreddit for supernatural research. Would you like to go into that a little bit?
Yes. Basically, what I'm trying to accumulate there is a library of sorts of any and all supernatural knowledge that people can pull together. The way it's set up is it seems very much gauged toward just anyone that wants to learn, but it's open for anyone to throw whatever knowledge they can to make almost like an encyclopedia of just all the knowledge of supernatural that we can find. Anything from creatures to anomalies to just anything in between. Anything and everything would be helpful. I started it obviously because of the soul lapse. I want to see if anyone can help me find out what it is. But obviously it is not restricted to that. I've already contacted someone who was researching shadow people, asking them if they'd want to join. I've not heard back from them yet.
Okay.
So if they do, maybe we'll start that whole, or maybe that'll start a whole like shadow person subdivision of the subreddit.
Yeah. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to contact you about their experiences and stuff?
Yes, you can contact me at my my Reddit, which is Retro Rogue Gamer. You can also find me as the moderator of r/supernatural_research.
All right. I'll make sure that I'll also post your links down below into this channel too for this episode. Now, before we end this episode, would you like to give the closing comments or advice for people that are experiencing anything at all that is similar to you or anything else?
Just if anyone's experiencing anything remotely close to a soul lapse, I'd very much appreciate getting in contact with me, even if it's not nearly as large as 2,000, or if it's something significantly larger than 2,000 souls. Anything that acts similar to it, or if they have any knowledge about something similar, I greatly appreciate it for my research. Because right now I have a Google Doc. I'm looking into any and all possibilities.
Okay. I'll definitely have him. I'm going to have Harley also post inside of the Supernatural Encounters subreddit as well, so you guys can find him a lot easier if you have any trouble trying to find him through the links on the channel. But other than that, Harley, I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, anytime. It's been a blast hearing your stories. Thank you guys for watching. It's been an episode of Real Supernatural Encounters, and we'll see you guys later. See you later, Harley.
See you. Bye.